In Uruguay, the candidate for the left-wing Broad-Front Party, Yamandu Orsi, became the new president-elect after winning the election runoff. The United Nations Children's Fund warned on Sunday about the unprecedented spike in violence affecting children and adolescents in Haiti. And in Pakistan, thousands of supporters of former Prime Minister Imran Khan marched demanding his release despite heavy security measures in Islamabad. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Uruguay, the candidate for the left-wing Broad-Front Party, Yamandu Orsi, has become the new president-elect after winning the election runoff on Sunday. With 100% of votes counted, the country's electoral court informed Orsi obtained 1,196,798 votes, which represent more than 49% of the total cast. For his part, right-wing National Party candidate Álvaro Delgado obtained 1,101,296 votes, for 45%. The win signifies the return of the left party to Uruguayan presidency. The Broad Front had 3 consecutive terms in office from 2004 to 2019, but was succeeded by the right-wing government of President Luis Lacalle Pou. In his victory speech, Orsi promised to strive for a country where plurality of options be respected and where no one would feel left out.
Triunfa una vez más. Que triunfa una vez más.
Triumphs once again. The country of freedom, equality and fraternity, which is nothing more and nothing less than solidarity and respect for others, is triumphing once again. Let us continue on this path. Today those of us who embrace these flags are very happy. Today we are very happy. Those of us that I recognize that we achieved victory. But let us understand, citizens of my political force and those who accompany me, that there is another part of our people that, like us, some time ago, today have a different feeling. Those people will also have to help us build an ever better country. We need them too.
And President Nicolás Maduro congratulated Uruguayan people for the elections held in which Yamandu Orsi was elected. The president, through his Telegram account, stated, "I congratulate the Uruguayan people for the election they held this November 24th, where they elected Yamandu Orsi, to whom I wish and predict the greatest success. Let's move towards the construction of a respectful and positive relationship of cooperation and shared support between our countries. A big Bolivarian hug to the Broad Front and to our Uruguayan brothers." Let's now go over some reactions on X to the victory of the Broad Front candidate Yamandu Orsi. President Luis Lacalle Pou posted, "I call on Yamandu Orsi to congratulate him as president-elect of our country and to put myself at his service and begin the transition as soon as I deem it appropriate." Likewise, President Lula da Silva praised Yamandu Orsi on social media X, saying, "I would like to congratulate the Uruguayan people for holding democratic and peaceful elections, and especially the president-elect Yamandu Orsi, the Broad Front, and my friend Pepe Mujica for winning today's election. This is a victory for all Latin America and the Caribbean. Brazil and Uruguay will continue to work together in Mercosur and other forums for fair and sustainable development, peace, and regional integration." Romania will go to a runoff election on December 8th. None of the candidates obtained the required majority in Sunday's first round. With more than 90% of the votes counted, the independent candidate, critic of NATO and the West, Călin Grăscu, surprised by beating the current Prime Minister, the Social Democrat Marcel Ciolacu, by the narrowest of margins. 62-year-old Grăscu, who is described as close to the Kremlin, won 22% of the vote, and the current 56-year-old Premier 21.1%. The winner described the results as an astonishing awakening of conscience, while his challenger highlighted the solvency of Romanian democracy. We now have a short break coming up, but first remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The United Nations Children's Fund warned on Sunday about the unprecedented spike in violence affecting children and adolescents in Haiti. In less than a year, the recruitment of minors by criminal groups has increased by 70%. The agency's studies estimate that half of the criminal groups are made up of minors. The plans imposed by the United States on the Caribbean nation have aggravated violence, generalized poverty, lack of access to education, and the collapse of basic services. According to the UNICEF report, all these causes have fueled the cycle of violence and helplessness of Haitian minors. Meanwhile, in Mexico, the Chamber of Senators announced that more than 10,000 people have registered to participate in the judicial election scheduled for 2025 in the country. The upper house informed in a statement that due to the growing interest, the population of candidacies via email was enabled until the deadline expired. Likewise, the evaluation committee of the different public bodies will evaluate each aspirant to participate in the election scheduled for June the 1st next year. In this sense, such elections are the result of the judicial reform, in which the citizens will elect by popular vote 9 ministers of the Supreme Court of Justice, 5 magistrates of the Court of Judicial Discipline, 2 of the Superior Chamber of the Electoral Court of the Judicial Power, 15 of the regional courts, 464 of the circuit courts, and 386 district judges.
And want to be honest judges, magistrates, honest ministers. That is the fourth transformation. It has principles and causes that we must never betray.
And Venezuela's parliament holds an intensive information and training session ahead of the elections for judges of peace to be held on December 15th to consolidate the communal government scheme. The legislators have been deployed throughout the national territory to inform the already organized communities of every detail about the historic process. On Monday begins the period for the nomination of judges, which will last until Thursday 28th. The electoral commissions of the 5,240 communal circuits in the country will be responsible for receiving the applications and evaluating the suitability of the candidates in accordance with the law. And Venezuela's Foreign Minister Ivan Hill condemned new interference actions by the United States against the country. Through a post on social media, the Venezuelan Foreign Minister said the non-existent, laughable, and phantasmagoric U.S. Office on Venezuelan Affairs, headquartered in Bogota, continues with its bizarre actions against Venezuela. He said it represents the interests of an outgoing and immoral administration which has a shameful record by supporting the genocide in Gaza, the bombings in Lebanon and Syria, by being an accomplice of the Ukrainian Nazis who fired missiles onto the Russian people, and having supported the raid on the Mexican embassy in Ecuador, among other atrocities. Such an administration has the audacity to pass judgment on the Bolivarian government's impeccable adherence to international law and to the norms of diplomacy set by the Vienna Convention and the United Nations Charter. Hill emphatically said enough of so much hypocrisy and lies by these U.S. officials who have relentlessly tried to harm the Venezuelan people, who have sequestered our assets and violated the site of our embassy in their country. It is time for the U.S. to stop such a conduct and focus on complying with its obligations to a respectable state. Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa faces a second complaint for gender-based political violence filed with the Electoral Court. The vice presidential candidate Maria Luisa Coelho of the Democracia Sí movement presented before the Electoral Court her accusation against the President Daniel Noboa for the acts suffered by the vice mandate Veronica Abad, suspended from office for 150 days. Furthermore, the denouncer emphasizes that this not only affects Abad but also generates a bad precedent for women involved in political activity. It should be noted that this process has already had a first hearing in which both parties presented their evidence and allegations, and the sentence of first instance is pending. Global media outlets report that newly U.S. President-elect Donald Trump is preparing an executive order aimed at expelling transgender soldiers from the military. The outlets unfolded that the GOP will sign the order on his first day in office. As a result, at least 15,000 soldiers will be discharged from the U.S. Army, alleging they are unfit for duty. The President-elect made that decision long before, as he had criticized the Army's progressive practices, saying they are more focused on inclusion than on combat planning. Earlier, Trump prevented transgender people from joining the military on his first term, but by that time he allowed those already serving to keep their post. And in Brazil, thousands of revelers gathered alongside Copacabana Beach for Rio de Janeiro's annual Pride Parade on Sunday. Let's see.
Rainbow-colored flags, towels, and fans abounded among the crowd, mostly made up of young people who danced and sang along to music blaring from speakers. While the atmosphere was festive, some spoke of the threat of violence LGBTQ+ people face in Brazil. At least 230 LGBTQ+ Brazilians were victims of violent deaths in 2023, according to the umbrella watchdog group Observatory of LGBTQ+ Deaths and Violence in Brazil. And more trans people were murdered in Brazil last year than in any other country, according to Transgender Europe, a network of global nonprofits that tracks the data. Despite the violence and rejection to which they are still subjected, LGBTQ+ communities continue to fight for the right to be respected, to have a family, or simply to have a life.
We all have the right to be who we want to be. It's important that people understand that. We're here to raise awareness, to make people aware that this is our right. Everyone's right to be who we want to be, to choose who we want to be, to have a life, to have a family. And that's what I'm here for sure, carrying the flag.
One of the themes of this year's Pride March was sustainability. Environmental justice will only be possible with racial and social justice, gender equality, and sexual diversity. Brazil has faced a series of environmental catastrophes this year, including record drought in the Amazon rainforest, floods in the southern Rio Grande, do Sul state, and wildfires across the country.
We have a second short break coming up, but before, we invite you to visit our YouTube channel at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to rewatch our interviews, top stories, special broadcastings, and more. Hit the subscribe button and activate the notification bell to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Long short break, don't go away. Welcome back. In Pakistan, thousands of supporters of former Prime Minister Imran Khan marched demanding his release despite heavy security measures in Islamabad. The national march, called by the pro-freedom movement, which has overcome attempts to blockade several cities, continues to spark violent clashes with security forces. Target Islamabad, which, despite keeping its central zone blockaded, has not been able to stop thousands of citizens that continue to advance, enhancing violent clashes with forces of law and order. Protesters are demanding, among other things, the release of Khan, whose arrest last year sparked widespread protests and led to a political crisis in Pakistan. In Palestine, the Hamas resistance movement requested support from the international community to stop Israel's crimes and to provide the necessary aid to the Gaza Strip. Local media report that the spokesman of Hamas issued statements regarding the latest political developments and the war that has been taking place in Gaza since October 7th last year. In this sense, the representative of the movement mentioned that the conflict has been going on for 415 consecutive days, being one of the cruelest wars in contemporary history, and stressed that the lack of action by the Arab and Islamic countries has contributed to the prolongation of this conflict. He also stressed that Israel has committed numerous heinous crimes in the Gaza Strip, including assassination, starvation, and obstructing the arrival of medical aid and supplies during the winter. In South Korea, a final round of talks on a treaty to end plastic pollution opened on Monday. The meeting opened just hours after a chaotic end to the COP29 climate talks in Baku, which agreed to boost in climate funding that developing countries slam as insufficient. Among the most contentious issues are whether the treaty should cap plastic production and a possible ban on chemicals feared toxic to human health and how to pay for implementation. Plastic pollution is so ubiquitous that it has been found in clouds, in the deepest ocean trenches, and even in human breast milk.
Plastics are highly durable. Depending on environmental conditions, they can decompose in between 100 and 1,000 years or even more. Microplastics have been detected in various human organs, raising concerns about potential health risks, including cancer and reproductive issues. As we can see, this conference is about far more than drafting an international treaty. It is about humanity racing to meet an existential challenge. Together, we can end plastic pollution and leave a legacy to hope for our planet and future generations. I thank you.
Let's see some facts about plastic pollution. In 2019, the world produced about 460 million tons of plastic, a figure that has doubled since 2000. According to the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, it is important to note that more than 90% of plastic is not recycled, with more than 20 million tons leaking into the environment, often after only a few minutes of use. Plastic also accounts for about 3% of global emissions, mostly linked to its production from fossil fuels. In Italy, the Fontana di Trevi is the most famous fountain in the Mediterranean country and one of the most emblematic monuments in Europe. Let's see some details.
The Fontana di Trevi is located in the district of Trevi, in Rome, the capital of Italy. It is a fountain of Baroque style that began to be built in the year 1732. But due to several complications, it was finished 30 years later in 1762, and in its design, many architects and sculptors of the time participated. The fountain is located on the facade of the Palazzo Pali, and it is 20 meters wide and 26 meters high. It is said, according to documents of the time, that after the fountain was built, it had the best tasting water in all of Rome. For centuries, locals and tourists, even the Vatican authorities, used to drink its water, but this practice was prohibited in 1961. The main artistic theme that composes the Fontana di Trevi is the sea. In the center, there is the statue of the Titan Oceano, framed by columns. In the lower part, the representation of a rocky cliff, and on it, two winged horses that are known as agitated and placid, representing the two states of the sea. On the sides of the ocean, the statues of abundance on the right side and of healthiness on the left side. The fountain is accompanied by a plaza that allows visitors to appreciate it and has become an icon of Baroque architecture today. In 1954, the film Three Coins in the Fountain was released, and since then, tourists from all over the world have the habit of throwing coins into the fountain, from which approximately 1 million euros are extracted every year. And since 2007, the money is used for the conservation of the fountain, or for charitable purposes. Last May 21st, some climate change activists dyed its waters black to demand a halt to the use of fossil fuels. The site, however, was not permanently damaged. The Trevi Fountain, together with the Historic Center of Rome, are recognized as a World Heritage Site by UNESCO in 1980.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website, telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.